You're listening to the Dealer Playbook Podcast, episode 32, and today we're sitting down with Mr. David Johnson. Here we go.
You're dialed in to the Dealer Playbook Podcast, where it's all about winning auto dealer strategies that deliver proven results. And now your hosts, Robert Weissman and Michael Cirillo.
Hey there, and thank you so much for listening to the Dealer Playbook Podcast, where every single week we are delivering real and winning auto dealer strategies that will deliver you results and greater profitability. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Michael Cirillo. I'm joined with my co-host, Robert Weissman. How you doing, brother?
Michael, I am doing excellent. Thank you. You guys, sometimes it's tough, man. We smile and laugh when we'll bust out because sometimes we might have done a few takes before we got on here and something funny happened. So it gets tough to keep a straight face sometimes.
Well, and you know what? It's funny, man. When we first started doing the podcast thing, you remember how like perfect everything had to be. But now it's just like, you know what? We love just kind of letting a little bit of that shine through and found, we've got a lot of good feedback. Regardless, today we're sitting down with somebody who I don't think I know anybody else who knows as much about digital advertising than our guest today. We're sitting down with David Johnson from 3G Engagement. I've had the privilege of being associated with David now for a few years. I first met him online, actually. Facebook is how we connected. We ended up getting together at a industry event, and from there I've just stayed so connected. And I mean, the guy is just so knowledgeable and so passionate about what he does. He's helping not only dealerships, but other small and medium-sized businesses every single day throughout North America, and I believe now in Australia, dominate the web by maximizing their digital advertising. So you're going to hear David today just outline some simple things that you can start doing immediately to audit your current AdWords campaigns or PPC campaigns if you're doing them, but also if you're not, to get started on the right foot and make sure that you know as much as you can going into it so that you can get the most out of it.
All right, man. You guys ready?
Let's do it. So without further ado, let's jump in with David Johnson from 3G Engagement. All right, and we are here with David Johnson, and like you heard us talk about there in the pre-show, there's nobody that we could think of who knows more and executes more aggressively and knowledgeably, if that's a word, can we make that up, about the topic of PPC and AdWords and digital advertising strategies that will help your dealership and increase in profitability. So, David, thanks so much for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a little while in the making, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Fair enough. Well, you know what? Like I said, we couldn't think of anybody better to just kind of break down this digital advertising topic than you. I mean, I've had the pleasure of working with you and working with you on a lot of, digital advertising projects, and it's just been exciting to see and learn from you. And like I said, we couldn't think of anybody better to talk about with this. So let me ask you, when it comes to dealerships specifically, because I know you guys help many small and medium-sized businesses out there with the PPC stuff, but specifically to dealerships, what do you see as the common problem or objection or obstacle that dealers are facing who are currently involved with some level of digital advertising?
Wow, it's a really good question, and one that is definitely loaded. And there's a lot of there's a lot of different things that I think I can say to that, but one in particular is two words: knowledge gap. I see there's a big difference between the dealers that get it and those that don't. Now, of course, they hire a vendor, and you think, okay, well, let the vendor do it. Let them handle our AdWords account. Let them handle PPC. Let them handle Bing and Yahoo, all that stuff. But I always see a big difference between the dealers that get it and those that don't. One of the big problems is that there's a lot of companies out there in the vendor space who don't do a very good job of explaining, what the reports mean, why this particular part of your campaign is working, why this particular part isn't. And I think that the knowledge gap for dealers is a big deal, and why it's great for podcasts like this for dealers to learn, to take a education first approach to anything that they do, especially when it comes to digital marketing, because there is so much to it. And I've personally, working with dealers, I do enjoy working with those who ask a lot of questions, those who know what they want, because it's much better to have a partner when it comes to marketing, and especially digital marketing, than it is to have somebody to say, hey, you're the expert, just run with it. While in the beginning that may be kind of nice, to say, hey, okay, well, we're the experts, let us run with it. But then when we come back and say, hey, this is working, what are you seeing on your end? And they're like, just run with it. You're the expert.
Yeah. And the thing I love about this is it evens the accountability payload on both parties. So it's like, it alleviates that, well, I thought you were going to do this. And from the vendor standpoint saying, well, I thought you were going to do this. And it avoids all of that, but it allows you to really move forward in that spirit of partnership so that you can sit down and counsel with each other and say, hey, look, what are the objectives of your business? What do you want to accomplish? And I know the blanket answer is we want more leads, we want more sales, but it's like, I mean, what's your approach? How do you approach coming into a dealership and doing an SEO or doing a PPC campaign for them from ground one? Say they've just maybe had a bad experience or they've never done it before.
Okay, well, if they've had a bad experience and if they've never done it before, I always started off two different ways. If they've had a bad experience, of course, you always want to ask them, why was the experience bad? And sometimes looking at this data, and I'm looking at it, the data is good, right? But just maybe their education level wasn't there to see, okay, well, this is equaling sales. They didn't understand how to correlate one to the other, all right? And so those that have never done it before, it's kind of the same thing from the fact that they don't really know what to expect. And then from there, I'd like to take and really teach them, hey, this is what to expect. This is what you're going to get. This is what the KPIs are. This is what's important. And incidentally, going back to your initial question, is that's where we start, right? So not every dealer wants to focus on used cars, or not every dealer wants to focus on new. Maybe some don't want to go to parts or service or other fixed ops. So we really start there and kind of figure out, okay, what are your KPIs? How are we going to track, lead form submissions? How are we going to track phone calls with some sort of keyword level call tracking? So that way, when we're doing reports or when the dealer's getting reports, they can say, okay, this is equaling me sales. This is my bottom line. So that's kind of how we start things. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier, is education first. I can say every day at the dinner table, I always ask my kids, just probably like, parents all across, Canada and the U.S., all across the world are always asking, what did you learn today? But, I don't say it just to say it. I say it because I really want to know and get my kids as excited about learning as I am. And if I can put that on them and I could put that on dealers to get excited about learning about this space, I think the better off they're going to be.
How do you bridge the gap, though? I mean, ultimately we know from our own experience that, and like you mentioned in the beginning, that knowledge gap. There's some dealers who are really invested in this and want to learn as much as they can. There are those who would just prefer to, hand it off or have somebody else do it. What do you say to, the concept of education first? How does that apply to everybody? I mean, is it, hey, look, if you want to be successful at digital advertising, your AdWords, PPC, even Facebook advertising, it's on you to learn as much as you possibly can about this topic, whether it's your own spare time, whether it's taking an hour of your lunch break to learn as much as you can so that you're that much more empowered to make a go of it? Or is it, okay, yeah, you don't want to learn anything about it, we'll just do our job? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Yeah, I can say that second one can be a little frustrating, at least from my perspective, is I know there are a lot of vendors who like the idea of someone telling them, a dealer telling them, hey, just run with it. And maybe they don't have to live up to any sort of expectations. But I think as the dealer, I think that they really need to go, what you said, and kind of go out there and learn. There's tons of courses, lots of videos out there, lots of blog posts, and great podcasts. Again, I'm plugging you guys again, Dealer Playbook here. Is a great thing to listen to and really to learn, right? If you make it part of your commute, part of your day to actually learn, As an example, and I know you asked me to maybe think of a resource or two, as I use NetVibes. It's an RSS reader, and I have a bunch of different blog posts that I subscribe to. And I always, very first thing in the morning is when I get to the office, because prior to getting to the office, I'm checking my email, right? Mm-hmm. One of the first things I do is I kind of run down the list and see what's new and exciting in SEO and social media and AdWords, marketing, everything. I take a look at it, and I see what applies to me, and then I read it, I consume it, and I take notes. Now, I know as a vendor, I probably go to a deeper level than maybe a dealer would, but I think it's really important that a dealer, again, has a partner with them, much like I said, we're looking for a partner. But so they should be able to learn and then go and ask their vendor, hey, I saw this. Are you guys doing this? Show me this. And really, and I think if you're working with a vendor, that's worth their salt, they're going to say, okay, let's set a time aside and let's go over every bit of this, and I can kind of walk you through it. So yes, education needs to be spearheaded by the dealer, but it also needs to be supported by the vendor that they're working with.
Sure. So suppose I'm a dealer and I want to just dive in, get my feet wet. What are some steps that you would suggest I follow to get going? Say we're going to do this in-house. I'm the internet director. I want to make an efficient use of AdWords, but I'm not necessarily at a point where I would partner with somebody. What can I do right now? We've covered education. That's ultimately the first thing that needs to happen. Where do I go from there? What can I be doing, and what should I be focusing on? Is there a magic number budget-wise that I should be looking at? Is it market specific? Let me turn that to you.
Or even a big mistake, or the things that you see when a lot of people do get started. Yeah, that they're doing completely wrong. That's just like DEFCON 5, it's like the worst possible thing you could be spending your money on, because that happens, and that's a shame, because then it'll never catch on for you.
Okay. Yeah. So it's easy to get an AdWords account, and you can do AdWords. It's easy to get an AdWords account. Definitely connect it with your Google Analytics account. And then again, of course, education first, you got to learn how to use those tools. But beyond that, when you're setting up your account, one of the things I can say just is keep your campaigns, your ad groups, your keywords, and your ad text tight, right? If it's an F-150, if it's a 2015 F-150, your ad should say 2015 F-150 and should land them on the appropriate page on your site. Now, typically that can be on the VDP page. But then sometimes it's even better if you have a special lease deal to land them off on a landing page that talks about the F-150 lease that you have, and then, of course, a button that links them to the appropriate inventory.
Okay, so this is good. Sorry to cut you off. So you're saying, hey, and this is probably a common mistake that you see is people don't separate out campaigns and ad sets and the keywords inside of that ad sets. They probably just create one overarching campaign that has so many different themes inside of it, and then so many different keywords and ads inside of that. So it's you're saying keep or create campaigns that are specific to whatever your objective is, right?
Right, absolutely. And internally, we use a buying funnel, right? That goes from the top, from awareness to interest to learn to shop and then to buying. And of course, there are different keywords at each one of those levels. And I think at the very beginning, and go back to your budget question, that's difficult to answer. I mean, it depends on, what they're running, if they're running dynamic used inventory, if they're running parts and service. It depends on a lot of different things. So it's really hard to say where you should start. But I don't see many dealers that really get a lot of benefit except for a small, maybe independent used car lot, spending less than, $1,500, Of course, can they? Yes, but to be a player, you're going to have to spend more of that depending on the market. But really focus on those. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, so really focus on, finish that thought.
Yeah, so really focus on the lower funnel, right? Like I said, it starts at awareness and goes down to shopping and buying. So really focus on those buying keywords. So someone says, how much, long tail, how much does a 2015 Ford F-150 cost, right? Or they're looking for a specific model, 2015 Ford F-150 Lariat, right? So you can see that they've
So
actually narrowed
very
it down.
specific, targeted, and ready, and in that, that 2% buying mode that they say everybody's in the market, right? So like they're
Right.
real low, like ready to pull the trigger.
Right. So focus on that.
Yep.
And then if you have budget left over, then go up the funnel, maybe to shopping and learning and to interest and awareness, depending on your budget. But always stop at the bottom and focus on those buying keywords, because each keyword has a different intent behind it. So buying intent keywords are the ones that you want to go after.
I love this because, and let's just break this down real quick too. I mean, this is my understanding. David, correct me if I'm totally wrong, but an example of like an awareness keyword that someone would type in would probably just be like trucks, right?
Yes.
Or maybe even model specific. They might say F-150. But as they move down the funnel, as they kind of, acquire information, you talked about how you consume information. As the consumer's purchase decision is shaped and qualified a little bit more, their searches will also become more specific. So they would then say, hey, it's not trucks anymore. It's trucks with 6,600 pound tow capacity. And then from there, it might be like black trucks that can tow a travel trailer.
Right?
Yeah, it just keeps getting more specific. And like you said, that's how specific their search is an indication of how close they are to purchase, right?
Right. I would love to say that you were wrong because you told me to tell you that, but you're not. So if you're the top of the funnel, if you have interest, you're truck, car, right? Awareness. So once they are familiar with, okay, the truck's out there, then they might go to a model like I used the example of the Ford F-150. Then they're starting to learn about it, saying, okay, what's the Ford F-150's towing capacity? Then they might be shopping. So they're looking for, Ford F-150 Lariat as an example. And then a buying keyword is even more specific, and they might even use the word buy or leasing in there or finance deals or something else. But it could be, 2015 Ford F-150 Lariat 4-wheel drive blue, right?
Right.
And that's a very specific example.
Or maybe even like comparison shopping, right? Like they might say, what's the difference between the F-150 and the Chev Silverado?
Yeah, and that's more in the learning phase, right? So learning is they're looking at that versus. So that's really great for organic, by the way. If I can switch to that, is those versus pages do a great job if you're a Toyota dealer and want to bring in Honda customers, right? Those versus pages work very well because the people that are in that part of the funnel of learning about what they want to buy, that's a perfect way to go.
Love it.
Can I ask a question here?
Absolutely.
Because this is definitely more Michael's speed and things, and definitely more of his specialties than mine. Hence, I haven't been very active. I apologize to all my fans out there, but
you mean all
anyway,
all your fan?
Yeah, my fan, Dad.
I apologize to all your fan.
Hey, Dad.
Shout out, Dad. Yeah. All right, but no, seriously. So I'm going to assume that, and tell me if I'm way off, that the higher the funnel keyword, the cheaper. Like meaning like the more that it's awareness, like when you're doing more of the awareness keywords and you're buying those clicks, I mean, are they cheaper than when you're buying those closed bottom of the funnel keywords since they're probably more competitive at the bottom?
Loaded question.
Or am I totally off the map?
Well, I don't think you're totally off the map. You're going to have more searches and more people at awareness phase because, like I said, look, think of it as a funnel. You're going to have more people up there, and if you're truck, if you're buying the word truck, typically you may not see a lot of people buying the word truck because I personally would never run a campaign like that because I haven't seen anyone that had that much disposable income that we can just run truck, right? Because we don't know what that intent is. Maybe they are, I guess I can probably give a better example if I take it outside of the auto industry to make it ridiculous because sometimes I think making things ridiculous, and I do it with my kids, one, it makes them laugh, but it gets them thinking. If somebody doesn't know what a television is, right? They've never seen one before in their life. What are they going to search? They're going to go search television, right? That's the term they're going to use. And then they start digging down a little further, and they're going to go, oh, plasma TV, LED TV, right? Right? And go on down. So having said that, typically awareness, I don't want to say it, but typically, yes, they'll be a little cheaper because I don't think there'll be a whole lot of people who are buying the term trucks. Unless, like I said, they have a lot of disposable income.
Yeah, but a lot
Or
of people are buying
budget.
Honda Accord.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
how
Yeah.
much
So
best price?
Okay,
Right.
and then you had also mentioned something here that I want to point out as well. Just I don't know if you caught it, but there was an effective little strategy in there, which is from your ad, driving the traffic to a relevant page. I can't tell you, just in my own personal experience, and David, you've got so much more experience than I do, how many times we see an ad for, oh gosh, I don't know, 2015 Ford F-150, and it just lands you on the homepage of the dealer website.
if you could see me, I'm shaking my head right now. Yeah.
Hip face palm, right?
I
Because
was like, what?
and you had mentioned, as you were just kind of skimming over this, was that you need to go from relevant ad to relevant landing page.
Yeah,
that's the
well,
ultimate.
The equivalent
and if you
of
can't,
what you just said is like blowing somebody out on the lot when they walk in, and somebody just blows them right out.
Yeah.
When you get a click on an ad and you take to the home page.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
and we see that so often, but I love that you had mentioned that. Can you maybe get into a little bit more about, I guess the psychology of why that's important? And I mean, what dealers can do right now? What's the ideal scenario? Is it add to relevant landing page? Is it add to VDP page? What's your opinion?
Okay, so there are lots of studies with this, not only in the auto industry, but outside the auto industry. Before I get into the psychology, though, there's a thing that Google, that AdWords uses, and Bing does too. It's a little bit different than how they do it, but AdWords use a couple of different things in their ad rank, and what that is it determines the position of the ad, right? So if you're looking at the SERP, the search engine result page, you're seeing at the top, you're seeing the 3 ads, and then you see all the ads on the side. So those are your position, right?
Right.
An ad rank is quality score multiplied by what you're bidding. So the quality score is a lot of different things that go into there, and one of them is landing page relevancy, right? So relevancy can be the word for this podcast, right? Relevancy, really important. So if you land somebody, if somebody's looking for a pink tutu, right? I think Michael mentioned that Robert was looking for one the other day. Okay, so if you're looking for a pink tutu, right, and you click on the ad and you go to the page for slacks,
right,
someone's going to bounce off, right?
Right.
And the reason they're going to bounce off because it's not relevant to what they were looking for. It's going to cost you more money for the click because, you're not landing them on the right page. But 2, it's going to cost you more money because your quality score is going to drop, and you'll have to spend more money in the bidding process to get your ad to show up higher. Right? So there's a lot of reasons in there. Now, incidentally, Bing doesn't use what your bid is, how much you pay for it, to figure out what your ad rank is, or your quality score is, rather. But there's a lot of things that go into that. So psychologically, it's kind of what I just said. Someone's going to bounce off the page. By bouncing off means they're going to go to the page, look at that one page, and they might click the back button or exit out and go to another search, right? They might just go out of the page.
Right.
But, yeah, you just want to land them on the right page.
So something that you can do listening in right now, if you're concerned about this, I would definitely go into your AdWords account. I hope you've got access to it. You need to have that for the level of transparency that's needed. And make sure you find out where your ads are landing your customers. So if you're running a specific ad on a certain year, make, model, make sure that you're not leaving them or dropping them off on your homepage. Make sure that there's some relevant place that you're leaving them, right?
Right, yeah. And it goes back to what you said about asked about VDP. If the term is 2015 F-150, right, and you're having an exact match, right? That's what you're searching for.
Right.
Now, incidentally, we don't need to get into about AdWords might be getting rid of the exact match keywords, but anyway, let's just say that's the keyword. You don't want to land them on a specific VDP because it might be the wrong vehicle they're looking for, right? So they're maybe in the interest or the learning phase, right? So land them on all the 2015 Ford F-150s. But of course, if it's a 2015 Ford F-150 Lariat, you land them on that one, and then you could even go to dynamic inventory and land somebody on a specific vehicle, right cool. On the VDP page. So
and something that I see that I really like is even pulling back one step from there. Yeah, well, it's like, hey, go from the ad, the 2015 Ford F-150 ad to I call them hub pages, but like a 2015 Ford F-150 information page that then has a very prominently displayed call to action that says view our in-stock F-150 inventory or something along those lines.
The SRP to when they then can go into the VDP from that.
Yeah.
Take some
absolutely
step by step. I agree because
we're like totally nerding out here.
Yeah, well, that's what I like because that's why I think Edmunds and KBB and those guys, it's not because everybody automatically trusts their name going in. If you're really not actively shopping for a car, like you don't know much, you don't see them. They're not all over the place, So when you do that and you land on their site, it just has information about vehicles. I think VDPs just get a lot of hits. They're mostly one of the most, more visits than anything else on a dealer's website. It's because unfortunately it has the most information about a car on their website, but VDP information does not speak the consumer language. 4x4 air AC, all that stuff that
right.
Doesn't do anything.
That's a good point.
Yeah, very good point. Again, it's all down to we talked about relevancy, search intent. The keyword has to land on the right page, whether it's SEO or whether it's SCM, right? So if somebody is doing the versus, land them on the versus page, right? That's the keyword. If someone's looking for the hub page type information like Michael was talking about, then that's where you land them. So look at the keyword and you got to think about what is the intent behind this? What are these people wanting to land on? Start there and you can't go wrong.
Love it. Okay, so I'm going to, in the spirit of, because, let's face it, we could nerd out on this for days. Let me just kind of give a recap, and David, fill in the gaps if you hear any. So step one, education. Learn as much as you can. It's your duty and obligation as the business owner or as the internet manager, whoever's going to oversee this, to learn what you can so that you know exactly what's happening. Then the next step is dive in. You could sign up for a free AdWords account, and then you want to make sure that your campaigns, ad sets, and keywords are all kind of theme specific. I had one question about that. When we talk like theme specific, is it model? Is that considered a theme, or is it more like new vehicles, used vehicles, and then inside of that you would have year, make, model ad sets? Yeah,
so you have campaigns, and the campaign maybe can be new Toyotas, right, or new Fords, and then under there you have specific ad groups like for the F-150 or the Tundra, right, and then you have and then in those ad groups you have very specific keywords, 5 to 6 keywords per ad group that go to a specific ad that land on a specific page.
Love it. And then from the ads, you had mentioned the quality score. Make sure that your ads are dropping your customers off on a page that's relevant to the ad that they clicked on. Can you imagine how deceiving it would feel if you thought you were getting one thing, but you're actually delivered elsewhere? So do a quick audit. If you're running some PPC, run an audit and make sure that you're driving your traffic to relevant pages. You're going to see an increase in conversions. And ultimately that's what's going to help you deliver higher quality traffic. Now, ultimately, like I said, we could be talking about this for days and days and days. I could sit and listen to David impart his knowledge on digital advertising for
Well, if that's what you guys are going to do, I'm going to head on out of here, man.
No, so
go talk to his fan.
Yeah, he's going to go talk to his fan.
Kidding.
He's going to go call his dad.
Yeah,
but let me ask you, David. So for those who want
it's very good information, David.
Yeah, for those who want to, learn more, or who really want to take a bite out of this PPC thing and see greater profitability come to their dealership, how do they get in touch with you?
Okay. Well, my email address, I'm going to give you my email address, and we'll give you the office number here. Email address is david.johnson@3gengagement.com, and that is the number 3. And then, of course, the office number is 719-424-7149.
Love it. You have any social profiles we can point people to?
Yeah, so you can reach me on Facebook. It's /David Johnson 101. Of course, it's hard to find anything with David Johnson. You can find me on my blog at davidnjohnson.com or persuasiveconcepts.com for that matter. You can find me on Twitter, DavidJohn_son.
How clever.
You have to. I mean, it's David Johnson. Come on. I had to get my blog. I've been trying to get davidjohnson.com for like 10 years, right? And I'm sure every David Johnson in the world is doing the same thing. So my middle initial came up about a year ago, so I snatched it up.
Love it. Okay, thank you.
I wonder who the David Johnson
is. Well, there's probably a million of them.
Yeah, my mom wasn't very imaginative. Sorry, Mom.
Hey, well, if it makes you feel any better, Michael Cirillo was taken. And I mean, how common is the last name Cirillo?
What?
I know, right? Anyways, hey, listen, thank you so much for being with us today. For those of you listening in, I know, Robert, he owns every domain under the sun.
I stockpile them things, man.
I'll tell you what, for those of you listening in, please check out www.thedealerplaybook.com. Check out the show notes because we're actually going to include the blueprint for getting started with digital advertising. You absolutely need to go check that out. Stay tuned for the show notes. David, thanks so much for being with us today, and we'll talk to you soon.
I'm honored.
Appreciate it, David. And that was David Johnson. And Michael, I can tell that was definitely a session that you enjoyed, man. That's right up your alley.
I say this all the time. I take pages of notes, but just in my own experience helping dealers with their digital advertising, I mean, David's such an extremely, like I said, passionate individual who I don't think I know anybody that knows more about this stuff. So it's cool to like be able to bend his ear, get real questions answered. I think every day in the country, globally, there are dealerships who want to see more happen with their digital advertising efforts because it's such a cool way to drive really high quality, not shoppers, but buyers, people who are further down in the purchase process. And so, you heard David outline these strategies that you can start using. Like I said, if you check us out, www.thedealerplaybook.com, we are going to include in the show notes a blueprint, a free download for you, which will include the steps that you can take to make your digital advertising more profitable. So again, don't forget to check us out, www.thedealerplaybook.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes. We would love for you to do that. Stitcher Radio, if you're an Android user or if that's just what you prefer. And of course, on SoundCloud. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll talk to you next time.
See you then.